Have you thought about Jesus Christ? And I'm crying and I look at him and I go, every day, because this is what they did to him.
Girls Gone Wild, The Untold Story, Part 6. And how did it all crumble? And I know what you're saying. Well, obviously, because of all the, literal crimes you've mentioned. No, actually, everyone pretty much agrees it fell apart because of Joe's terrible behavior. So we're still in Florida. We're looking about 2007-ish, and Joe is still involved in a civil suit that has gone to mediation. Now, he's not making any meaningful moves in mediation to help settle it. He's actually doing quite the opposite, taking his shoes off, being really disrespectful, treating everyone poorly. When they tell him, come on, man, we really need to get this settled, he tells people to SMD, mouse stuff, right? Then when the judge tells him you are going to make meaningful attempts to settle this, or I'm going to hold you in contempt, he has his publicist release an article calling the judge a judge gone wild who just has an axe to grind, which resulted in a contempt charge. From his first night in jail, Joe was very clear that he was going to be very Joe and expect special treatment above and beyond everyone else, which I think that's what we would expect at this point, all the stuff that's been said. So he stops the guard and he's like, hey, I'll give you $100 if you'll give me a bottle of water. Now, if you know anything about being in jail, the guard immediately goes, why do you have cash or your wallet?
Whether warranted or not, he's in a solitary confinement with a light on in his cell 24/7.
I'd have to walk in the shackles and they hurt. And I was very emotional. I mean, I'd be crying during this whole thing. I remember this one time I'm walking down, I fell and they came and they picked me up and it was the chaplain. And he says, son, have you thought about Jesus Christ? And I'm crying and I look at him and I go, every day, because this is what they did to him. And the guy looked back at me and I knew he knew then that this was wrong.
Now, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on certain books, but I certainly missed the part where there were any similarities between those two. And he goes on later to compare what he went through to Mandela also. Now, in previous parts, I told you, the legal problems are stacking up now, especially because one of the things, if you ever get rich, can you hear me when I say this? Just hear me. If you ever get rich, pay your damn taxes, okay? Pay your taxes, okay? Because while he's being held on the contempt charge, he is actually extradited to Reno on tax evasion charges. Once Joe is extradited to Reno, he starts seeing the special treatment that he was expecting in Florida. He's able to be on the phone all day, make all of these conference calls, when technically at that place they were only allowed one call a day. He hires a compliance officer and they start with this new policy. We promise that if you call the company, which is so easy to get a hold of, we swear, even though everyone says they're we had no idea how to find a number, then we will take your part out of the video. However, that's also fake because they say straight up, if the part was too big or they thought that the girl was really hot or whatever, they would take it on a case-by-case basis and there was a high likelihood that your footage would not be removed. In this time, Joe's celebrity friends are rallying around him in a very public way as well.
And if you watch early episodes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, he calls in from jail on the show.
It's Joe Francis.
Joe Francis! Where are you, honey?
I'm in jail.
Kim Kardashian was seen wearing a Free Joe t-shirt.
I love Joe and his situation's unfortunate. And he should be free. That's why I'm wearing a Free Joe shirt.
So Joe is eventually released and he goes on to compare himself even more than Mandela and Jesus to June from Handmaid's Tale. I mean, the martyr complex is martyr complexing. That's what it is, right? And then he decides, you know what? Things are really starting to slow down. I need some new products.
Joe also creates this show called The Search for the Hottest Girl in America. It's a reality competition show. It is exactly what it sounds like.
The young lady who ends up winning the competition, her name is Abby, does in fact end up being Joe's long-term partner. She's 18 years old. He's at this point in his mid-30s and very affluent. The power dynamics are just all over the place and not a good thing. Then he starts selling GGW merch, just the merch by itself, because formerly you had to go to their things to get it and this sort of thing would be sent to, that sort of thing. But now you can buy it. Then they go on to their new video project called Boys Gone Wild. Now, obviously, Boys Gone Wild has implications about it that Girls Gone Wild doesn't, because women can fake certain things that men can't. They were trying to get certain shots, and it made the camera people really uncomfortable, finally. When they went to Joe and talked to him about this, he was very dismissive of it, the same way that he would have treated all of these other girls. So now they find themselves on the other side of the coin, not being respected and really realizing what this is. And then Joe decides that he's going to stop showing up for payroll. He's going to stop helping people. He's going to stop being communicative. His bookkeeper ends up sending an assistant over to see why he hasn't signed the payroll or clicked the button or whatever, and they get attacked. Now everyone's quitting. It's an environment that they're not going to work for, and this rage and this aggression and this upset spills over into a very public situation.
From watching the security tape, it is clear What happens is Jade Nicole brushed Joe's shoulder and poured a drink on him, and then Joe turned around and battered her. TMZ was outside of the club and they interviewed Jade Nicole, and she came out hysterical.
Oh my God.
To the ground. He kicked me in my stomach, in my chest, and again, like right here.
Now remember Abby, the girl that he was with. So he had spent the entire night in the club kissing other women, grabbing other women, doing all of this stuff, and that was her friend. And her friend was like, no, you're not gonna treat my girl like that, and dumps a drink on him, and that was what ensued after. This was basically the beginning of the end. Now, we are going to get more to that in the next part because the videos are so rough, I kind of wanted to relegate it all to one area. But it went so far, his own mother has a restraining order against him. So hopefully I will have that up this afternoon, but I took New Year's off to kind of spend with my kids or whatever. But I will see you then, and I hope you have a good day.